my dear students. How are you? I hope all are good. Welcome back to another class. Today, let me start English chapter number 9, The Model Millionaire. Have you ever heard the proverb, all that glitters is not gold? Appearances are sometimes deceptive discuss. Unless one is wealthy, there is no use in being a charming fellow. Romance is the privilege of the rich, not the profession of the unemployed. The poor should be practical and prosaic. It is better to have a permanent income than to be fascinating. So, these are the great truths of modern life, which Yugi Riskin never realized. Poor Yugi, intellectually, we must admit he was not of much importance. He never said a brilliant or even an ill-natured things in his life. But then he was wonderfully good looking with his crisp brown hair, his clear cut profile, and his grey eyes. He was as popular with men as he was with women. And he had every accomplishment except that of making money. His father had educated him as cavalry sword and a history of the Peninsular War in 15 volumes. Yugi hung the first over his looking glass, put the second on a shelf between Ruff's Guide and Ballet's magazine, and lived on 200 a year that an old aunt allowed him. He had tried everything. He had gone on the stock exchange for 6 months. But what was a butterfly to do among bulls and bears? He had been a tea merchant for a little longer, but had soon tired of Pico and Souchong. Then he had tried selling dry sherry that did not answer. The sherry was a little too dry. Ultimately, he became nothing a delightful, infatual young man with a perfect profile and no profession. To make matters worse, he was in love. The girl he loved was Laura Macton, the daughter of a retired colonel who had lost his temper and his digestion in India and had never found either of them again. Laura adored him and he was ready to kiss her shoestrings. They were the handsomest couple in London and had not a penny piece between them. The colonel was very fond of Yugi but would not hear of any engagement. Come to me, my boy, when you have got 10,000 pounds of your own and we will see about it, he used to say, and Yugi looked very glum on those days and had to go to Laura for consolation. One morning, as he was on his way to Holland Park, where the Mattons lived, he dropped in to see a great friend of his, Alan Trevor. Trevor was a painter, indeed few people scap that nowadays. But he was also an artist, and artists are rather rare. Personally, he was a strange rough fellow with a freckled face and a red beard. However, when he took up the brush, he was a real master and his pictures were eagerly sought after. He had been very much attracted by Yugi at first. It must be acknowledged entirely on account of his personal charm. The only people a painter should know, he used to say, are people who are better and beautiful. People who are an artistic pleasure to look at it and intellectual repose to talk to. Men who are dandies and women who are darlings rule the world. At least they should do so. However, after he got to know Yugi better, he liked him quite as much for his pride beyond spirits and his generous, reckless nature, and had given him the permanent entry to his story. When Yugi came in, he found Trevor putting the finishing touches to a wonderful life-size picture of a beggar man. The beggar himself was standing on a raised platform in a corner of the studio. He was a wizened old man with a face like wrinkled parchment and a most piteous expression. Over his shoulders was flung a coarse brown cloak, all tears and tatters. His thick boots were patched and purple, and with one hand he leaned on a rough stick while with the other he held out his battered hat for arms. What an amazing model, whispered Yugi as he shook hands with his friend. An amazing model, shouted Trevor at the top of his voice. I should think so. Such beggars as he are not to be met with every day. A travel mood cheer, a living Velasquezan. My stars, what an etching remembrance would have made of him, poor old chap. Said Yugi, how miserable he looks. But I suppose to you painters, his face is his fortune. Certainly, replied Trevor, you don't want a beggar to look happy. Do you? How much does a model get for sitting? Asked Poogie as he found himself a comfortable seat on a diva. So a shilling or an hour. And how much do you get for your picture, Alan? Oh, for this I get 2,000 pounds. Okay, Guineas painters, spots, and physicians always get guineas. Well, I think the model should have a percentage, cried Yugi, laughing. They were quite as hard as you two. Nonsense, nonsense. Why, look at the trouble of laying with the paint alone and standing all day long at one's easel. It's all very well, Yugi, for you to talk, but I assure you that there are moments when I almost attains to the dignity of manual labor. But you mustn't chatter. I'm very busy, smoke a cigarette and keep quiet. After some time, the servant came in and told Trevor that the frame maker wanted to speak to me. Don't run away, Yugi, he said. As he went out, I will be back in a moment. The old beggar man took advantage of Trevor's absence to rest for a moment on a wooden bench that was behind him. He looked so forlorn and wretched that Yugi could not help pitying him and felt in his pockets to see what money he had. All he could find was a sovereign and some coppers. Poor old fellow, he thought to himself, he wants it more than I do, but it means no hansoms for a fortnight, and he walked across the studio and slipped the sovereign into the beggar's hand. The old man started and a faint smile flitted across his withered lips. Thank you, sir, he said, thank you. Then Trevor arrived and Yugi took his leave. Blushing a little at what he had done, he spent the day with Laura, got a charming scolding for his extravagance, and had to walk home. That night, he strolled into the Palette Club about 11 o'clock and found Trevor sitting by himself in the smoking room. So, drinking hot and seltzer. Well, Alan, did you get the picture finished all right? He said as he lit his cigarette. Finished and framed, my boy, answered Trevor. And by the by, you have made a cut twist. That old model you saw is quite devoted to you. I had to tell him all about you. Who you are, where you live, what your income is, what prospects you have. My dear Alan, cried Yugi, I shall probably find him waiting for me when I go home. But of course, you are only joking. Poor old wretch, I wish I could do something for him. I think it is dreadful that anyone should be so miserable. I have heaps of old clothes at home. Do you think he would care for any of them? Why his rags were falling to bits? But he looks splendid in them, said Trevor. I wouldn't paint him in a frock coat for anything. What you call rags, I call romance. What seems poverty to you is picture sequenceness to me. However, I will tell him of your offer. Alan said, Yugi, seriously, you painters are a heartless lot. An artist's heart is his head, replied Trevor. And besides, our business is to realize the world as we see it, not to reform it as we know it. Checkers son met you, and now tell me how Laura is. The old model was quite interested in her. You don't mean to say you talked to him about her, said Yugi. Certainly I did. He knows all about the relentless colonel, the lovely Laura, and the 10,000. He told that old beggar all my private affairs, cried Yugi, looking very red and angry. My dear boy, said Trevor, smiling, that old beggar, as you call him, is one of the richest men in Europe. He could buy our London tomorrow without overdrawing his account. He has a house in every capital, dines of gold plate, and can prevent Russia going to war when he chooses. What on earth do you mean? Exclaimed Yugi. What I say, said Trevor, the old man you saw today in the studio was Baron Horsburgh. He is a great friend of mine, buys all my pictures and that sort of thing, and gave me a commission a month ago to paint him as a beggar. He was the fantastic Dune millionaire, and I must say they made a magnificent figure in his rags. Or perhaps I should say in my Rex, they are an old suit I got in Spain. Baron Hosberg cried Yugi, good heavens, I gave him a sovereign, and he sank into an armchair, the picture of dismay. Gave him a sovereign, shouted Trevor, and he burst into a roar of laughter. My dear boy, you will never see it again. Son affair, sis, I largen des autres. I think you might have told me, Alan, said Yugi, sulkily, and not have let me make such a fool of myself. Well, to begin with, Yugi said, Trevor, it never entered my mind that you went about distributing arms in that reckless way. I can understand you kissing a pretty model, but you're giving a sovereign to an ugly one by Jove. No, besides, the fact is that I really was not at home today to anyone. And when you came in, I didn't know whether Hausberg would like his name mentioned. You know, he wasn't in full dress. So what a duffer, he must think, we said. Hughie, not at all. He was in the highest spirits after you left, tap chuckling to himself and rubbing his old wrinkled hands together. I couldn't make out why he was so interested to know all about you, but I see it all now. He will invest your sovereign for your Yugi, pay you the interest every 6 months, and have a capital story to tell after dinner. I am an unlucky devil, ruled Yugi. The best thing I can do is to go to bed. And my dear Alan, you mustn't tell anyone. I shouldn't dare show my face in the raw nonsense. It reflects the highest credit on your philanthropic spirit. Yugian didn't run away. Have another cigarette and you can talk about Laura as much as you like. However, Yugi wouldn't stop but walked home, feeling very unhappy and leaving alone Trevor in fits of laughter. The next morning, as he was at breakfast, the servant brought him up a card on which was written, Monsieur Gustave Nodin, de la part de Mele Baron Hosberg. I suppose he has come for an apology, said Yugi to himself, and he told the servant to show the visitor out. An old gentleman with gold spectacles and grey hair came into the room and said in a slight French accent, I have I the honor of addressing Monsieur Erskine to Gibbot. I have come from Baron Hosberg, he continued. The Baron, I beg, sir, that you will offer him my sincerest apologies, stammered Yuki. The Baron, said the old gentleman with a smile, has commissioned me to bring you this letter, and he extended a sea envelope. On the outside was written, wedding present to users Erskine and Dora Maton from an old beggar, and inside was a check for 10,000. When they were married, Alan Trevor was the best man, and the Baron made a speech at the wedding breakfast. Millionaire models, remarked Alan, are rare enough, but by Jove, model millionaires are rare still. So everyone, the chapter is in here. I hope you all are very well understand full chapter. We will meet to the next class. Thank you, everyone.